What's up, guys? We're here today with a quick little video, waiting on some parts for the Camaro, so I figured we'd knock this little project out real quick. And to be honest, I wasn't really going to film it, I was just going to knock it out. But I started looking online, I didn't really see any videos of anybody doing any of this, so I figured I'd make one real quick. And in case you're looking at any of these products, you can check them out and watch this video, maybe it'll help you out a little bit. So, in previous videos, I know I've shown before my MPI, Motion Raceworks steering wheel. It's already got the quick detach hub installed on the back, but today we're going to be adding some buttons and a couple other little things to this. So moving over, we have a double button bracket. There's the part number right there, and there's the bracket. And then I have a single button bracket right there. So we have a double and a single. Moving over, I have two buttons. I have this bigger red mushroom button, and there's the part number on that. And then I have one of the smaller green momentary buttons. There's the part number on that. If you'll notice, we have two buttons. We have a mount to mount 3 buttons. That's because Motion Raceworks only sells momentary buttons, and I think I want to put an on-off button on the other one on that double bracket. So I need to get one of those ordered. So we just have the 2 for now. And then moving on down here, we have the monocord wiring system. There's a part number right there. And this is going to make it to where we just have one wire running down the steering column instead of having 3 individual ones. We can tie everything into our Deutsch connector here and just have one wire. So that'll be everything for the steering wheel. And then moving over, I also got a billet turn signal from Motion Raceworks. There's the part number. That'll go on the steering column, and then also the little column collar that comes with it. So there's everything. So I'll go ahead and set the camera up, and then we can start putting some of these brackets and buttons on. Alright, we got both of our little brackets on. You can see we have our double one on the left side, and our single one over here on the right. Pretty simple. It's just a 2mm Allen head on the head of the bolt, and then an 8mm lock nut that goes on the back. So just go ahead and put those on, tighten them down. They go through the slot right there, so you do have a little bit of adjustability. So I went ahead and put those on, tightened them down, and then I just took the red mushroom button and ran it through the little hole in the bracket. So we go ahead, just put that down in the hole like that. And then we have our little washer and nut that goes on the back side and tightens down. So I'll go ahead and tighten that one down and put the green one through over here and tighten it down as well. So we got our 2 buttons mounted up right here, good to go. See, we got our mushroom one over here. We're going to use this for the line lock. And then we have our green momentary right here. And I did find and just ordered an on-off button to go in here. So we'll mount that up whenever it comes in. But as you can see, we got all these cords hanging down back here. And then we'll have a third one. And imagine if you had a double bracket on the other side, you would have 4 of them. So to get rid of that, we're going to use our monocord steering kit. And here it is over here. So the first thing we need to do is we have this bracket that it comes with. So we need to take this bracket and we're going to mount it right here on the back of the steering wheel. So I need to take these 2 bolts out and run it through here and mount this just like that. So I'll go ahead and do that and then we'll come back. So now that we have our bracket installed, we can go ahead and take our female DT connector and it'll just drop right in there just like that. Whenever we're done wiring it, we can go ahead and tighten the screw down right here. It'll pinch it and keep this thing from coming out. We're going to leave it loose for now until we get all the wiring done. So now we need to start connecting our pins into the back of this connector. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these cords down first. They're way too long, so I'll cut them down something like that, and then we can go ahead and start wiring them into the connector. So we've got all of our wires cut to length and stripped, as you can see here. And also, I changed my mind. I did decide to add another momentary button on the bottom. So we have our 2 green momentaries here now. Instead of an on-off, I decided the momentary was the way I wanted to go. So we got that on and mounted up. And now that everything's cut and stripped, we can go ahead and start putting our pins on. So you'll notice I did take the bracket back off. It's just going to be a little bit easier to wire it all in, and then we'll bolt it back on whenever we're done. So now we need to go ahead and crimp our pins onto the wires, so we'll go ahead and do that next. So if you've never seen a DT connector before, how they work is we have 2 pins here. We have a male end pin right there and a female end pin right there. The male end is going to go in our female DT connector, and the female one is going to go into our male. So we'll go ahead and crimp the wire on the end of these and snap these into the plugs, and whenever you connect the plugs, they're going to connect together just like that. One thing to note, it's not as big a problem on the male one, but you want to watch out for it on the female one. If you notice, both sides are open. This side right here, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a little hole right there. That's a witness hole. The wire is going to go in and get crimped on this side. So you want to make sure that you're putting it into the right side. You don't want to crimp it into this side. On the male one, it's not really an issue because you got your opening right there. This side, obviously, you can't put it in. But just one thing to watch out for. So how this is going to work is, this is our female connector. So we're going to want to put our male pin onto these wires right here. We're going to use a set of crimpers. I recommend getting a better set than these ones. These are cheap ones. But I need to get one, but this will work for what we're going to do. So we'll grab one of our wires right here. You can see this one's already done. We'll stick our wire all the way in. And one thing I want to check out for is, see the little black sheathing right there on our black wire? You want to make sure there's a little bit of a gap between it and the end of the connector. You want to make sure your black sheathing isn't going up into the connector. So we do have a little bit of a gap there. We're good to go. So we'll go ahead and take this. We'll stick it all the way down into our crimper. Make sure it's fully seated. And then we'll just go ahead and crimp it. And there we have it right there, a fully crimped connection. You can see that thing is not going anywhere. So we'll go ahead and do the other four, and then we can go ahead and start plugging them into the back of our connector. Now that we have all of our pins crimped on, we can go ahead and start plugging them into the back of the connector. So the connector is going to sit on there just like that. If you look in there, there is 8 slots. So this kit will support up to 4 2-wire buttons. We're obviously only using 3. So how I'm going to run it is, we'll do a top, and a bottom. I'm going to plug them in just like they're sitting. So I'm going to do power, then ground, power, then ground, power, then ground, all the way across, just to make it simple. So we'll take our power one first on this side right here, and you're just going to simply push it all the way in until you hear it click. So if you could hear that right there. So we're good to go there. I'll go ahead and plug the other ones in, and then we can go ahead and set this bracket on and tighten it down. We'll be good to go here. So there we have it. All of our pins are in the connector and set into place. I went ahead and bolted it back down, so we're good to go there. The only last thing we need to do is we need to put our little wedge lock in. So there's our wedge lock right there. We're just going to drop it down in there, just like so. And we're going to push it all the way down in. Now you can use a little flat blade screwdriver to push it down in. You'll hear it lock into place, and that's going to lock all the pins in. That way they can't come out. So let's go ahead and snap that down in. And there we have it. Our steering wheel is now complete. All of our buttons work. And if we flip it around and look, we have all of our pins in there. We have our wedge lock installed. We have our nice clean wiring. I'll probably go ahead and put a couple zip ties on this just to hold everything together like that. But other than that, we're good to go. So we can go ahead and set the steering wheel off to the side. We'll grab our harness connection and we can go ahead and start working on it. Moving on to our harness, we're going to do pretty much the exact same thing that we did on the steering wheel. So we'll go ahead, pull this back, strip our wires, and then we can go ahead and crimp on our female pins right here. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then we can go ahead and plug them into the back of our connector. One thing with this connector, this little plastic 90-degree piece just goes on the back. And if you see, here's the main body right here. This part will just fold down whenever you're done, and it'll give us a nice 90. You want to make sure on your male connector right here, see how there's these 2 little bumps on top? You want to make sure that those are facing up, because our connector is going to go into the back of the steering wheel like this. And if you have this thing upside down, your wires are going to point up like this. So make sure those 2 little ridges are facing up just like this. Our wires are going to go in just like that. And one other thing, you want to go ahead and put this little piece on before you start peeling this sheathing back. It's just a lot easier to do it now than after everything's already stripped. So we'll go ahead and put it on just like this. So I'll go ahead, pull this back, strip the wires, crimp the pins on. We'll stick them in the back right here. It's going to go just like this. And then we can go ahead, fold this piece down, click it into place, and then we'll go ahead and screw this little nut on the end after that. So now that we've got everything wired in there, you can see we have 8 pins sticking through. The 2 empty ones, I just went ahead and put in anyways. That way, in case we ever decide to add another button, we can just take the steering wheel off, add the button in, put the 2 connectors into the empty slots right here, and we're good to go. So this will be ready to go if we ever decide to switch to a 4th button. But for now, we're going to be good. And one thing to do to help you out, just in the future, whenever you go to wire this up, I wrote down which one is which. So yellow, red button power, red button ground, blue, orange, white, green, black, brown, so on and so forth. That way, it might be a couple months before we get to wiring any of this up. That way I can go ahead and take a picture of this or put it with the rest of my wiring stuff and we'll be good to go. So now we're good to go here. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to put our wedge lock in this side right here. So we'll pop it down in. Just like so. That's good to go right there. And then we'll go ahead and put our wire in right here. We can bend this down, click it into place, and then we'll go ahead and slide our little nut up, thread it on. Just like that. And then last but not least, we'll go ahead and take a small zip tie, put it in that little slot right there, and tighten it down. Hold that cable into place, that way it can't strain itself right there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a zip tie and we'll go ahead and do that. One more thing that I just realized to help you out maybe, a standard size zip tie, I don't know whatever size these are, does not fit in that little slot. It's too wide. No big deal, I'll run out tomorrow, get some thinner zip ties, and we'll go ahead and tie this up and we'll be done for good. But just so you know, standard zip tie does not fit. And now that we have both of our plugs done, we should be good to go ahead and test it out. So, just like that, snaps right into place. Pull it out, pull the little tabs, pull it right out. So we are good to go there. So we go ahead and set this off to the side for now. We're going to take it out to the car and install it next. But first, I want to go ahead and install this turn signal. I'll show you why here in a couple seconds. But we're going to go ahead and install this first. I'm not going to film it. It's pretty simple. There's 2 pieces here. You have the actual turn signal piece right here and this little collar. The collar bolts on right there. They make different size collars for whatever size steering shaft you have. This is 1.25 inches because mine's 1.25 inches. So I'll go ahead and take this out to the car, take these 2 screws out, pull this half off, set it on there, bolt it down, and then we can go ahead and finish up the steering wheel. Okay, so installing this steering wheel into the car, I've ran into 2 problems. So we're going to go ahead and figure those 2 out. We're going to start with the easier problem first. So if you will, imagine this shaft right here is our steering column. So this part doesn't spin when we turn the steering wheel. This is the outside column. Our steering wheel mounts on the end just like this. And here we have our cord. If you notice, we have the stretchy part right here, the coiled part, and then there's also this big, long, straight piece. It's flexible, but it's not stretchy. We can't stretch it out. Whereas this, we can stretch it out like that. So our steering wheel is mounted on there, and we need to zip tie the cord up to the column just like this, and that'll give us a little bit of strain relief. So the problem is, if we zip tie it up currently how it is, just like this, as you turn the wheel, you can see the straight part wraps around the steering wheel, and it puts stress on the wires in here because this part is not stretchy. So to fix that, what we need to do actually is I need to go ahead and depin this connector. I need to cut this down to somewhere about right here and mount the connector on right here. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that first. So the nice thing is it's really simple to unpin this connector, and then we can go ahead and move it down like I said. So first thing, all we gotta do is take a little flat blade screwdriver and we're just gonna pry the wedge lock off. So just like that. And then you probably can't see it, but if we look in there, there's that little tab right there. hopefully you can see it. You can probably see the top ones right there. There's just that little plastic tab right there. All you need to do is pry it down, just like that, and then you can go ahead and push the pin out through the back of the connector. So we'll go ahead, take all these pins out, cut it off. We'll cut the cord down to somewhere like right around here, and then we'll go ahead and add this connector back on down here. Now, as you can see, our cord's a lot shorter than it was before. So now, if it sits on the steering column and we pin it up like this and start spinning it around, you can see it stretches that cord, or hopefully you can see that. It's kind of hard to do without it actually being attached, but see how the stretchy part of the cord is wrapping around the steering column like that? So that'll give us a lot better chance of keeping our wires in here intact, because we can use the stretchiness of this cord right here rather than using the long non-stretchy part that we had before. So we went ahead, I got the zip tie on there, so we are good to go. Now we're going to go ahead and go out to the car and I'll show you the bigger problem we're facing. So here we have our Motion Raceworks steering column. This steering column is specifically made for the 5th gen Camaro. So you see we have our turn signal mounted up right there, and then in front of it there is this little bracket right here. What this little bracket is for is so you can mount the factory plastics that sit right in here and right underneath and fill this thing in, give it a real nice look. So there's our plastics right there, and if you see there's that big hole right there. The steering column actually comes with this little plate right here. So how this plate mounts is we'll drill 4 holes in the face of this plastic right there. It mounts on there just like that. So we have a lot smaller hole for our new steering column, and then we have the 2 center bolts right there. They will mount into the 2 little holes on the side of this bracket right here. So we have all that. The problem is we need to zip tie our cord right here all the way this way past our last accessory. So in this case, it needs to be past this bracket. So we have this little space right here that we can zip tie our cord to give us a strain relief. I'm going to go ahead and put the plastics in the wheel on, and I'll show you where the problem is with that. So here's a very rough fit up of the factory plastics. It's barely sitting on there. I'm still missing a plastic piece right there to fully put it together, but this just gives you an idea of how it looks. You can see our turn signal is poking through the old turn signal cutout, but that's pretty much how it sits on there, just like that. So the problem is that we need to be able to zip tie our cord right here in between this little space right here. If you notice, our connector pretty much comes flush with the front of this bracket right here. I mean, so you can't really zip tie it up right here because the connector comes out as far as this does. So I think there's 2 options we could go to fix this problem. Option 1 is we do not put all the factory plastics back in. We could go ahead and cut this bracket out, maybe move the turn signal back a tad, and then we could probably zip tie it up something like that, maybe right where the turn signal is sitting. However, there isn't a whole lot of room between this turn signal and the dashboard right here, if you notice. So I don't know if that option will work. The only other option I can think of is to get a steering wheel extension. So basically what it would do is you have your quick detach hub right there on the back of our steering wheel. Motion Raceworks makes a 3.5 and a 6-inch, I believe. They might also make a 5, but I think it's 3.5 and 6-inch extension. So there would be basically a tube in between our quick detach right here in the back of our steering wheel. That would allow our steering wheel to sit out, something like this, which would in turn pull our plug out farther also, and then we could possibly attach our cord right here and still be able to keep this bracket for all of our factory plastics. Our turn signal could stay in the right location, and everything would be pretty good there. So I think this is a problem for the future. We need to have more of the interior in here to figure out what we're really going to do with it. I don't want to buy a steering wheel extender and then when I go to put the seat in, the steering wheel is too close to me. And I don't want to cut this bracket out and do all that and then realize that I need a steering wheel extender and then I can't mount my factory plastics. So I think we're just going to let this problem go for now. So there we have it. That's going to conclude today's video. Super happy with how these buttons mounted up and the mono cord on the back of the steering wheel and everything here. Super pleased with how this turned out. Like I said, I really wish we could have got this attached today, but I just think that's a problem for the future. Let me know in the comments if you've had this issue. Maybe there's a solution I'm not thinking of to solve this. However, I'm really leaning towards just getting a steering wheel extender and going that route. I think it'll be the best solution with the least amount of headaches. But it's kind of hard to decide that whenever we don't even have a seat in the car yet and how that'll affect other things. So we're just going to go ahead and wait to make that decision. So we're going to end it here. If you guys have been watching along in the build series so far, we got the LS out. I've done a couple small things on it. I got the spark plugs put in today and a couple other small things. Front accessories are on the way. The flex plates here. So next video we're going to go ahead and start doing some stuff like that. And hopefully by the end of the next video, this thing will be installed into the car. And then we can go ahead and start working on our turbo plumbing, our fuel system, cooling system, lots of cool things like that. So really happy with how everything's coming along. And we got some cool stuff planned for the future, so definitely stick around for that. If you haven't watched any of the previous videos, definitely go check them out. We got this LS done, the transmission, lots of other cool things. So definitely go check that out if you haven't. And I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next time.